Well, g'day legends, and welcome back to another episode of the Laptop Lifestyle Dad Show. Hey, this one's proudly brought to you in partnership with the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. Hey, my name's Jeff Ross. I'm your host. I'm a proud father of three energetic boys, coming to you from the beautiful island of Tasmania, Australia. Hey, this is the show where we help frustrated network marketers, affiliate marketers, and online entrepreneurs to master AI, social selling, and attraction marketing, so you can build a business that works for you instead of the other way around. Now, let me ask you this. Are you consistently feeling overwhelmed and burnt out trying to grow your business? Do you struggle with confidence, motivation, and showing up consistently online? And what if I told you that AI isn't here to replace you, but it's here to help you become unstoppable and unleash that creativity? If you're nodding your head, you're in for a treat today. I'm absolutely stoked, yes, that's an Aussie term, to welcome Sandee Sgarlata. Sandee is a peak performance expert, certified life coach, and managing director of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. She's a former US national figure skating coach and an award-winning author and host of the Happiness Solved podcast. Her mission? Helping people unlock their mindset, resilience, and confidence to create happiness-driven success, whether in business, leadership, or personal growth. And today, Sandee is here to share how happiness and success are deeply connected in business, the mindset shifts that needed to overcome burnout and setbacks, how to build a personal brand to establish your influence in today's very noisy digital world, and how AI is changing the way we show up online and how we use it to our advantage. So, Sandee, welcome to the Laptop Lifestyle Dad Show.
Oh, Jeff, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. And I don't think I knew you lived on Tasmania.
Yeah, little island down near Antarctica, I think our neighbour is.
And I'm a huge tennis fan. And right before the Australian Open, there's always, before every Grand Slam, there's always tournaments that build up so that the players get used to the time change, the geographic conditions. The climate's different, in Australia than it is, you're in your summer there. And it's so funny because every year now there's a tournament in Tasmania, and they always laugh. They're like, people just know the Tasmanian devil, like the cartoons that I grew up watching. Didn't know it was a real place. And wow, people actually live there.
It's a little island that normally gets forgotten off the map, and we're okay with that because we're one of the world's best kept secrets.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
But all right, legends, before we jump into today's conversation, I just want to talk about something that's going to help a lot of network and affiliate marketers and social sellers to scale their business faster than ever. It's the Laptop Lifestyle Dads Academy. It's our go-to system to help you to master social selling and AI automation, building influence and authority through attraction marketing, and creating duplication and team growth without burnout. Hey, we don't just teach you how to grow your network marketing business. We give you the exact roadmap and tools to help you to make it happen. Want in? Just come and have a chat with us, and we'll explore to see if it's a good fit for you. The link for for you to go and check it out for yourself will be in the show notes below. And we look forward to connecting and getting to know you better. And part of what we're doing is building a community where people feel seen, heard, valued, and loved. All right, let's get back into today's episode with Sandee. So, Sandee, as a peak performance expert and host of the Happiness Solved podcast, you talk a lot about how happiness is not a destination, but it's a choice. I've got my own stories I can definitely connect to that, but I love that, how you say, it's a choice. So in a fast-paced world, in a very noisy space online, how can entrepreneurs intentionally cultivate happiness while still growing their success?
That's a really, really great question, Jeff. And here's the thing that is so critical, because you need to have an online presence. And I struggle with this maybe more than most, because I find social media, if you stay on it too long, it largely is not a good place for anyone to be. Because if you understand the way our brains work, And our brains are naturally wired to always default toward the ego is going to try to protect you. So when you see somebody who's you're perceived, and I'm using intentionally saying perceived, right? Because when we're looking at other people, other influence out there, or other people that are doing what you're doing, you're perceiving them in a whatever way. Oh, well, they've got this, or they have this many followers in this. And our brains will naturally default, wow, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not there? Right? Your brain is always going to go to that place. And so you have to be very, very careful and make sure that you're doing things with intention on social media, whether it be, because you want to support people. And I that's one of my goals for 2025 is getting out there and supporting people. And I need to do it more intentionally because I can't rely on the algorithm to show me their feed. So what my game plan is to have a list of people that I want to support. Okay. And they don't just have to be, they can have larger following or smaller following, but you actually want to go after the larger following people if you want to grow online, and you want to just go to their page. Don't scroll. Go specifically to the page, find their most recent post, and like and comment on it, and get that engagement that way, because then their audience is going to see it. But you want to avoid scrolling and be very intentional, because when you scroll, I've been doing this, Jeff, for 35 years. 35 years I've been on this journey of my quest for practicing happiness. Yes, it's a choice and it's a practice, just like anything else. I'm also a tennis player, and I had tennis practice this morning, and I played for an hour and a half, and I know that I'm practicing again tomorrow morning because I have a match on Saturday that I want to do well, and I have to practice. Well, look, I also want to be happy, and you got to practice happiness every minute of every day, every opportunity we have a chance to practice it. So that's the big thing, is if you're trying to grow online, you just want to be very, very, very intentional about it and avoid that scrolling.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love the intentionality of what you just described. Yeah. And that's the best way I can describe it, right? It's love on purpose.
It's love on purpose, because here's the thing,
love
Jeff.
On purpose.
In business, 80% of your success is mindset. 20% is the tactics. So 20% is your continuing education, all the emails you're following up on, the strategies you're selling. Everything else is mindset, because if you got the mindset, the selling is going to be easy peasy. Everything else is just going to flow. But you've got to take care of the space between your ears first.
Yes, very powerful. And, in this AI space, that is a great reminder. It's, the best tool is right here between your ears.
And AI, and when you were talking about, when you were doing your promos, I was taking notes because I wanted to make sure that I talked about these things. And AI is phenomenal, and I love it, and I rely on it because I use ChatGPT, and I've been priming my GPT prompts. And I've been working on this for about 8 months. And so it knows me.
Yeah, intimate, right?
Intimately. But here's the thing. AI is never going to replace Sandee Sgarlata's authenticity. It's never going to do it. And so while I look at my ChatGPT as my assistant, I'm like, what would I say to my assistant? I'd be like, hey, can you draft an email to this person? And I give it all the information. I want it to be like this, do it like this, blah, blah, blah. And I give it the information. Boom, there's my email. Do I just send it as is? Absolutely not. I have to go and I have to make it my own. Because if I had a human assistant that was drafting an email for me, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And you're going to go back and make it my own. And so I think it's really incredible, but people just have to be really, really careful. I bet you cannot lose your authenticity throughout this.
I love how I had an interview with Manoj Agrawal, and what he said about, I love the statement he said that AI is like a Ferrari. It's a powerful tool. It's a powerful machine, but there are a lot of kindergarten kids driving Ferraris.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Best metaphor I can think of to describe the power of it. But I want to come back to mindset, and I also love to reference it as heart set. Operating out of our heart.
That's right.
And creating purpose-driven lives and mission-centered, personal brands rather than transactional businesses. like, don't get me wrong, we're in business. We need to, money's like oxygen, but I find it's a different conversation. It's a different energy. It's a different way you show up when it's about the mission. It's not about the sale.
Exactly.
And where I'm leading here too is in a world that is very noisy online, because it's gotten noisier and noisier, especially with AI. I feel like trust is at an all-time low. Like with everybody's a bit skeptical now. Is this AI? Is this a real human behind it? Where's the heart that's disappeared? In a world that's starving for connection and starving for love and starving for trust, what are some of your go-to tips here to communicate effectively in a way that helps people to feel seen, heard, valued, known, ultimately loved?
Yeah, you're calling it heart-centered. I call it consciousness. And so part of what I do in the corporate space is I work on conscious leadership, and I train leaders to come from a place of pure consciousness. And so what that means is everything is a frequency. And so your frequency, so here's the thing. We live in a world of light and darkness. There's a polarity in everything that we do. And so you cannot be grateful and frustrated or angry at the same time. They cannot coexist.
Yeah.
So what needs to happen is every time you're doing anything, whether you're making a post, you're sending an email, you're having a call with a potential customer or whatever, anything that you're doing, you want to make sure that your frequency is at the highest level. And if you're feeling any sort of angst in your heart, that's when you want the quickest way to do it is just focus on gratitude, do some deep breathing, focus on everything you have to be grateful for. And what that's going to do is raise your frequency to a high level so that you can trust yourself. And to get back to where you're saying, you said there's a low level of trust. You have to, when you're in that high level of frequency, the people who are doing everything by AI, you're going to know it. Your spidey senses are going to go up like nobody's business. And it's like, okay, I'm going to swear. My bullshit meter, the bullshit meter is going to go up. And you're like, I just had a call. I had a couple of calls with somebody, and they're trying to sell me a big ticket course. And everything was good until she I don't believe what she said. And I knew it was bullshit. And that red flag went off, and she told me, well, I did the same thing, and I made $185,000 in 90 days. And I'm sitting there going, then why are you working for somebody else? If you made that kind of money, you wouldn't be selling somebody else's course to me. You'd be out there doing it yourself. Okay, so you just have to be in tune and trust your gut, because that told me right there, no.
Yeah.
And see, that was all. She turned a great conversation made it about money. And she was trying to convince me. And that's where she lost me right there. And I'm like, and she knew it. She knew she lost me, because I'm like, you're full of it. And I know, because I can trust my gut, because I went into that call from a higher level of frequency, and you can't BS me when I'm in that state of mind.
Powerful. And so what you're talking about here is, I like to reference it as the law of vibration.
Absolutely.
Like attracts like attracts like, repels negative stuff, and you come from that safe centered space. Like, it's a safe space to operate when you understand this and you go into that space.
And nobody's going to get there. They're not going to fool me. They're not going to fool me, because I've been fooled so many times, because I'm a natural blonde. I give blondes a bad name, but I'm smart as can be, and you can't fool me.
Yeah.
Now when you say dad jokes, it may go over my head, and it may take me 15 minutes, and I'll sit and I'll think about it. I'll be like, that's so funny, right?
Yeah. Just takes it. Sometimes it takes, like, I'm dyslexic, and I've got ADHD, so sometimes
I am too. Same.
I process things out loud. Sometimes it takes me a little while to process, and then it's like, yep. And then everybody else has moved on, but I've come back to it. I get that.
So having your frequency, and I think that's probably one of your best ways to really navigate this new world with AI is, again, I'm going to bring it back to that. AI is never going to replace the human create. I mean, they may get creative, but the authenticity and the real feeling well, people are worried about, somebody coming and showing up as me and doing my thing. And I'm like, but they're not going to be me. You can't replicate that. You can't replicate it.
No, you can't. And you're right. The more you get into this world, I think the stronger your BS filter really does become in that space, because you can see the red flags right away. And
you can. Yeah.
What's coming up for me here is AI it's a very powerful tool, but it's an amplifier. And it basically amplified the heart, right? The intention behind your agenda, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve, all of that. So if you're looking out to, be a force for the greater good, it'll amplify that. But if you've also got, it's all about me, myself, and I sort of attitude, well, it's going to amplify that too.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
it really is an input-output tool. But I want to come back to mindset before we really dive into the AI technical conversation. What's the one thing that helps you? Okay, so like all entrepreneurs, especially, it's a roller coaster ride. It's like, again, it's life. It's amplified, and we have our ups and downs.
It's not for the fainted heart.
No, definitely not. We have our ups and downs. We have our twists and turns. We have times where we're really, really high and we're crushing it. And I know there's quite a few times that, you're doubting yourself. Imposter syndrome kicks in and you're thinking to yourself, like, what's the point of all this? How do you help people get that tough rhino skin? And, what are some things that they need to help them to build their resilience? I suppose, what are the top mind shifts people need to make when facing challenges, setbacks, or failures in their business and life?
That's an excellent question, Jeff. And for me, as a peak performance expert, I'm such a high performer, okay? And with that comes a lot of challenges. And I recently went through some very difficult challenges. Last fall, I had a couple of things go south. Big learning lessons in business, right? Not everything goes the way we intend it to go. And so a couple of big things hit me really, really hard. A lot of other life stuff going on. And it was really hard. I mean, I had more days where I couldn't get out of bed than days I got out of bed. And I've never experienced that because I've never experienced depression in my entire life, ever. And there's such a stigma around it. And now I know why, because I had a call with a vendor. I took the month of December off, and I was just telling people I'm having some health issues. We'll talk in January. Some people get a little nosier than others. And I'm like, it's fine. I just have some health, because I didn't want to talk about it. I wasn't ready.
You need to process it.
You got to process it. You got to get through it before you can because I was still in the middle of it. And when you're in the middle of something like that, you're attracting the wrong energy. So you have to get through it first so that you can speak on it in a tone of neutrality and not from that woe is me kind of thing.
Yep.
And so, but I've been sharing this. I just shared it yesterday on my show, because I think it's important, and it just describes the mindset of, especially in the United States, and how we have such a mental health crisis here. And I said to somebody, and this was in the beginning of January, and it's somebody that I'm working with. He's doing one of the components for my TV show that's going to be launched in February. And I told him what was wrong, what I'd been dealing with, and he looked at me and he goes, "What do you have to be depressed about?" He goes, "You're not ugly." And I how do you respond to that? And I'm like, okay. And that's exactly because you know what, Jeff? When I was going through that, I was afraid to tell my husband. I didn't tell anybody. I kept it inside of me for a good month because I was ashamed. Oh my gosh, how can you be depressed? You've got everything. I've got a successful podcast. Like my son just graduated from college. You know what I mean? Like, I have an amazing marriage, like everything. I'm on top of the world. And yet I felt like the loneliest person in the world, and I was depressed, and I couldn't get out of bed.
Loneliest person in the world.
Lonely. And I remember listening to a Justin Bieber song, and I'm driving down there, and I'm like, okay, I'm not like him, but I could relate. And he was just like, when you know, something like, when you know what it's like to have everything in the world and have nobody to call, then you know who I am. And it was like, and that's exactly how I felt. I don't have all the money like Justin Bieber does because I don't care about that. But I had everything else going for me, and I felt like the loneliest person in the world, and I had nobody to call. And I was too ashamed to even tell anybody. And I finally got through that, and now I can talk about it because I've experienced it firsthand. So it's okay. We're going to have our ups and downs. It's okay to feel the feelings. It was okay. I took a month off. I just turned 59. I've never taken a month off in my life. Ever. In America, we take a 1 week vacation, maybe two. That's it.
Yeah.
We're not like the Europeans or people from other places in the world where they take a 6-month vacation. 4 months, 4 weeks. No. I took a couple months off when my son was born, but I had just given birth to a baby. So like, that's not taking. So I was just, it was like sitting on my hands all day trying to be okay with taking a month off. And I needed that for the space between my ears. And it was the best thing that ever happened for me to go through that. And so the thing is it's like, you got to feel that. You got to get through it. But then when you're on this other side, you remember that and you focus on, wow, look what I just got through. That happened for me, not to me.
Yes.
And it's a daily practice. It's a daily practice. Because when I have a day, this past weekend, I had fun. I had fun all weekend and I didn't get any work done. Monday comes, I'm tired because I played so hard, didn't get a lot done. And Tuesday was the damage control day where I was like, it's okay. And I'm being very gentle with myself, very gentle, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay that you haven't worked since Friday. It's okay. But see, for me, you have to understand who you are. And it's a strength, but it can also be a very big burden if I let it. And I'm not going to let it get the best of me, because that could send you back down. And you got to keep yourself elevated. And it's okay to take a break. It's okay to not work 3 weeks nonstop. It's okay.
Yeah. Life goes on, right? And thank you for sharing that story. Thank you for being like really raw and real with us here, because I think that's very valuable for our audience to get. Like it's life, right? And it's okay to fall over. It's okay to feel the way that you feel.
Well, Jeff, let me just close it with this, because this is really important to emphasize that I was at a point where if I didn't share it with somebody. And I went to my husband first because I was laying in bed and he laid down next to me and he looked at me and he's like, what's going on? And I finally, and this was after Thanksgiving, and I was a trooper. I hosted Thanksgiving, which is my least favorite holiday. And I did it. And he looked at me and I'm like, I'm depressed. And I'm like, I need to talk to you about this, or otherwise I'm going to go check myself in. Like, I literally was at the point where, do I check myself in to a hospital? Or let's just face this, but you can't, we're only as sick as our secrets. And when you're keeping it inside your head and you're not verbalizing it, it just becomes this massive thing.
Yeah. Yep.
So as soon as I opened up, I was like, oh, now I can tell my son. Now I can tell my best friend. Now I can my ex-husband and I are very close. We're like brother and sister. Now I told my little brother. I told my sister. Once I started opening up, and then when I was through it, I tell this one person, and what did I get? I got, what are you possibly depressed about?
I know, right?
I'm like, oh my God.
Here's the thing that I'm picking up is you've gone through this experience now, and you can help others relate. Mm-hmm. You can connect through that story. And I've gone through my own experience. Like, I tried to kill myself 10 years ago. Like, I got so down and out, so depressed. See, I grew up on horse studs and, breaking horses and working with cattle. That's all I knew. I left school at year 9. I straight into, being a ranch hand. That was my identity. And, 26, I had a horse jump on my neck and, I ended up crushed. Like, lucky to be alive, lucky to be walking and talking. But the result of that injury was I've got 3 crushed discs in the back of my neck. My brachial plexus area is shot. My right arm doesn't really have much strength left. And the doctors wrote me off. They basically put me on a disability pension and said, here's your pain meds. See you later. Not much else we can do. And I lost my identity in that whole crisis.
Of course you
And,
did.
and,
Yeah.
at
Especially at that age.
Yeah. By the time I had to go through the disability pension stuff and whatnot, I was 30 and newly married. We had our first son and I've lost our income stream. I'm thinking, and I was brought up in a family that, you can't really rely on anybody. You got to do it yourself attitude. You got to work hard to get through life, that real sort of blokey, Aussie mentality. I'm sure it's in America too, but that real masculine, toxic masculinity environment.
Yeah. And, it's just as strong as here as ever. Yeah.
Right. So I've grown up in that environment and that's all I knew. You don't know what you don't know what you don't know. Yep. And I hit a deep spiral and got to the point where I just thought the world would be better off without me. And, I convinced myself that's my truth. That would be the reality of it. And I'm so grateful I call it God. At this time I was an atheist, but I've got a really good relationship with Jesus now. And at that time, God stopped me in my tracks. My 2-year-old son, as I was about to go, I had the bottle of Jamison's, I had the bottle of pills. I was just about to really just go do it. I convinced myself, talked myself in the mirror. I was about to do it. And my 2-year-old son walked in. He never woke up. And he came in that night and 2:00 in the morning. He said, Dad, with his big, beautiful brown eyes. He said, Dad, looked up. He said, Dad, what are you doing? And that just stopped me in my tracks.
He was an angel at that moment.
Yes. Sorry, get emotional telling this story.
Yeah, that was an angel. Thank God for that, right?
Yeah. And that was that milestone transitional moment for me to realize and wake up. And I had to take some ownership. And I realized that, because the person that I was not a very nice person. I was hurting and I was angry and I was lashing out. And I connect to your story because you said that key word, lonely.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like anybody saw me. I didn't feel like anybody heard me. My beautiful wife was trying to do what she could to help me that, but I pushed her away because I was hurting so much at that stage. And I'm so grateful that she stood by me in that season. And we've got a beautiful marriage now. But see, we went through the furnace and we've come out the fire and we've both done some really deep work over the last, 12 years.
That's awesome.
And, we're all somebody's guide, right? And things don't happen to us. They happen for us. And those stories, and that's why I share my story in that space. There's obviously a lot more to that.
Of course.
But to share that story with you and to be able to connect with your story is how we connect, relate, and resonate with each other. And we can have that heart-to-heart connection with people.
Right.
And we can support each other through life and that journey, that crazy wild ride. And here's the thing, that coming back to that keyword, lonely, there are so many people in this world who feel like that, who don't feel seen, who don't feel heard, who don't feel known, who feel unloved. And I feel as thought leaders and people empowering, that is our responsibility, right? Is to help people feel seen, heard, known, and loved so they don't feel lonely. And we do this thing called life together in connected, healthy, safe spaces in community. And so much so, this whole personal development journey, the spiritual development, Sarah and I started a church last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a little online church. It's called Today's Discipleship Community. And our heart is to help people to love themselves so they feel known, they feel heard, they feel seen, and that, to love God and to love their brothers and sisters, to love their community. And that's essentially that's the mission that we're on with that. And I'm just doing that same expression just in the online marketing space. And I think that's the when you can get clarity around your calling, your purpose, your mission, then you never really work a day in your life, do you? And I'm sort of lost my train of thought here, but I'm coming back to this. I don't know. Can you unpack the heart of getting clarity around a purpose-driven mission and how to help others to get that same clarity? I'd love to hear from you. what are some of your thoughts that are coming up right now, and how do we help others to articulate their purpose-driven lives, their heart-centered lives, to live in that mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to touch on the loneliness part just for a second, because it ties into the bigger picture of finding your purpose. And I started out earlier talking about everything is a perception. We all, these are my reading glasses. I don't wear glasses. I actually I wear one contact, and then these are my readers. And I can see you.
Yeah.
I can see you. It's just a little blurry, right? So I'm perceiving you as a certain way right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little blurry and everything. Well, as soon as I put these on, you're crystal clear, right? So my perception has changed. It's changed just like that. So when you're in the middle of loneliness, because when I was feeling that, I didn't describe it as being lonely. It was depression. But the loneliness, when I heard that song, that's how I felt. That's how depression felt to me. Depression felt lonely. I was not at a point where I was ready to check out. Although, if the world just ended tomorrow, I would be okay with that. If I got hit by a truck and died, I would be totally okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's where I was. I'm like, okay,
You lost your drive.
I was like, if this is it, then take me, because I'm done. Like, I'm done. But I've never reached a point where I would actually do it. I never got to that point. So anyway, so here's the thing. And for anybody out there who's lonely, please do not take this the wrong way, because what you're experiencing is real. It's real in our mind.
Of course it is.
But that's where it stops.
Yes.
It's an illusion. It's an illusion.
Yep.
Fear is an illusion. Loneliness is an illusion. And for me, as soon as I opened up and was able to share with somebody else, then I was able to share with another person, and then share with another person. And so if you're feeling lonely, sit in it, feel it, own it, take responsibility for it. And at some point, you got to break out of that comfort zone, because in order to grow, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And
sorry, just to cut you off there, I just want to take some responsibility for this conversation too. And if you are listening to this and you do feel these emotions, reach out, talk to someone,
please,
professional, a friend, whatever you need to do. Because I know that's what Sandee's done, and that's what I did. After that whole experience for me, the next day, I basically verbally vomited all over my business coach at the time. And she said, right, well, you got to meet my friend Tim. And my friend Tim took me under his wing and started to mentor me and help me to go through that process. And then I was able to share it with Sarah. And then, so that process of sharing helped me to put it not put it behind me, like it's still part of me, but to deal with it and be empowered by it, not destroyed by it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And there's so many resources right now, and there's online, in the United States, there's plenty of online psychotherapy centers that accept your insurance. There's groups, there's free toll-free numbers you can call. There's so many resources.
Yeah.
And so nowadays, and I'm a peak performance expert. I got to say it. If you're not reaching out, you got to take responsibility for your own. There's in today's world of information, unless you don't own a phone and you have no internet access, there's no excuse.
Exactly.
Okay. And I don't mean to be hard on anybody, but at some point you got to take responsibility, and you have to take action, because everything in life is just discipline and consistency.
Yep. It's what I call above the line culture. We can live a life above the line, which is taking ownership, accountability, responsibility for our actions, or below the line is blame, excuse, and denial.
Exactly. So, and if you're in that place, it's okay, because I think we've all been there. I know I have many times, but at some point and you can't hang out there for too long.
No.
Right? You're not getting this day back.
Yeah.
So it's about
you can fall off the horse, but don't stay in the dirt. You gotta pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back onto the
Absolutely. And so when it comes to having a purpose-driven life, finding, what is it that you're passionate about? And, there's so many different exercises. First of all, I think it's really important to do a values exercise and figure out what's important to me. What are my values? And then be like, okay, these are your values. Now what's my mission? What do I want to do? And then when you come up with your mission, and I don't own this, a friend of mine created this. This is one of her tools that she uses, and she is a licensed therapist. Her name is Kelly Bazzani. And so you figure out your values first. And then when it comes to your mission, what is your mission? And then you need to go like 7 layers deep. Well, why? Oh, well, because I want to help people. Well, why do you want to help people? Well, because blah, blah, blah. Well, why do you want to do that? Because of this. Well, why do you want to do that? And when you get like 7 layers deep, you will come up with, because you keep digging away and you dig, and you want to make sure, what are those, Google value words and write down, start figuring out which one's yours, and then make your top 5. Right? Because I look at a values with all the words, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can relate to so many. But when it comes down, for me, it's authenticity, it's spirituality, and it's family. God.
What are your top 3? What are your top 5?
Yeah, God, family, and authenticity, and gratitude. That's my values. And so and then from there, then you can, you have that.
And on the values conversation, there normally is a personal story or connection why that's such a big value for you, right? Like transparency is such a huge value for me because I used to live my life in so many secrets. And you said it before, you're only sick as your secrets, right? And that's so true. So I live my life out in the light almost to a fault. I've got strong boundaries around it, of course, but what you see with Jeff Ross is what you get. Like it's the same truth. Like, transparency is a huge value for me. So when I come across a disconnect to that someone's out of integrity in that space, it's such a values rub now these days.
Because integrity is another huge value of mine, is integrity.
Yeah. I love that. So getting to your values, but then coming back down to your why and going 7 levels deep. I like how Simon Sinek says, start with your why, but that's really just starting the surface, right? And I find, as a coach in this space, teaching people to figure out their why. Your why has got to be something that's bigger than you. It's not just about showing up and, okay, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to help me to benefit my life and I'm going to, get money, right? That is a why, but it's not the why. Right. What is the why that's bigger than you? What is the why that's going to help serve the greater good and help, probably even leave a legacy behind? Like when you're no longer here on planet Earth and your tombstone's there, what's that why? What does people remember you by and that why, that deeper level why? And so I love that you've expressed there the 7, why that, why this, and keep going until you can't go any further, because that is the why that'll drive you. So for my why, it's I'm all about helping people to live their heart-centered, purpose-driven lives. That's my personal why. And then, I've got my why wrapped around that for the Laptop Lifestyle Dads community. But we've also got a why with our online church that is closely tied to that. Yeah. And so our businesses, our brands are just vehicles. They're just the way that we express and we serve and we show up and how we drive the vehicles to help us to achieve our why.
Right.
And so I love that you unpack that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, and then here's the thing, if I can just add one more, is that you also need to know how you function. And for me, knowing that I'm such a high performer, I had 9 interviews scheduled for this week in a 3-day time span, 9 interviews. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Right? Like, this is too.
Most people look at that as a burnout recipe.
Exactly. And so I'll have a week like this, and then I know next week is, but a couple of them have already canceled or rescheduled. And so there was just, it all kind of works itself out.
Yeah.
But I have to know myself and okay, because I know on Friday I'm not going to be working. And so that's okay. So it's okay to work 3 days really hard, and then I'm going to take probably Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, right?
Go for sprints. Yeah, go for sprints.
Yeah. So for me, I kind of work well in that type of, like a sprint, like you just said. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to, because if you want to keep you want to keep that drive, you have to keep that. I like to say harmony. I don't really like the word balance. For me, it's harmony.
Yeah, the work-life balance seems to be a bit of a myth. So I like how you pull that up, because we all operate differently, right? And here's the thing that's coming around full circle to this whole conversation is you got to be intimate with yourself to be able to serve others. You got to know the way you're wired, your weaknesses, your strengths, everything in between, to really find that purpose. Yeah. And so it starts with doing some internal work. I love that. So
I interviewed. I'm sorry, Jeff.
You're right.
I interviewed, but you just mentioned the word intimacy, and I just interviewed someone. I'll introduce you to if you want, but
please do.
Hers is intimacy. So for her, it's about
I love that.
being
That's
intimate with
very
yourself.
uncanny.
Intimacy, and it was like, oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. So that's so uncanny. We're at church last Sunday, and beautiful Anne was up there. She's 83, and she's a life coach counselor, and helped a lot of people through, going through their processing stuff in life. And she said same thing. Like, you were talking about listening with care and helping, to help people feel seen, heard, and valued. And she's basically, she broke down the word intimacy as well, in exactly the same way, into me see. I love that. Brilliant.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shifting gears, we are talking about social selling and AI, and I think this is a very valuable conversation for our listeners to be going to do that deep internal work, because once you figure out a lot of this mind, heart set stuff, as you mentioned before, Sandee, a lot of the tactics, the strategies, these tips, the tools, that all just starts to help you to propel things faster. So with so many AI tools for content creation, automation, and engagement even these days, I'm not a fan of the engagement tools. I think it's adding engagement spam out there. A lot of people are worried about losing their voice, losing their authenticity online. So how can entrepreneurs use AI to enhance their personal brand, their influence, without losing their unique touch and personal connection to their audience?
That's an excellent question. I think that it's one that every single person who is trying to have an online presence needs to be conscious of. And again, AI is my assistant. It doesn't do it for me. Okay? So, I want to rank this post because for me, I'm such a perfectionist that it could take me 2 hours to figure out the perfect, in air quotes, the perfect way to say it. When you're priming in ChatGPT, which is the only one that I use, when you're priming it, what that's doing is it's getting to know me. And it knows my website. It has, I upload documents, I upload pictures, it knows me very, very well.
You got a foundation. Yeah.
Exactly. And so you need that foundation there. And then it's like my assistant. Hey, can you just draft this email? Because I need you. I'm looking for corporate sponsors for my shows. This is what I want to say, blah, blah, blah. And then they give me the email. That would have taken me 4 hours to write. I don't have 4 hours. Okay. So it's efficiency.
Yeah.
And now I can take it. I'm like, oh, this is perfect, but I don't like the way that. Now I add my own voice to that, but it's very important. And because I can't tell you how many people that consider themselves influencers, and I've seen their posts, and I have a superpower with editing, and I can find them. I can find an error like that, and I'm like, oh, they left the sentence in from ChatGPT that says this is a great post to use, and they just copied the whole thing and didn't even look at it.
Red flag.
Copy and paste. Yep. No. Do not be copying and pasting. I copy and paste into a Word document. That's how I do it. I copy and paste.
That's a very handy tip, because I know I was guilty of that when I first started too. And
copy and paste into a Word document, and now I have a Word document. Now I can do that because a lot of times I do it for my phone, some I do for my computer. I can easily email it to myself and then copy and paste it. But you want to make sure you're copying and pasting into a Word document, and you want it to look, how do I want this to look? And now you make it perfect in Word, then you post it. And I think that people, it's fine. It's great to use, AI to help you be efficient, but it can't do your job for you, because this is your voice, and it's your brand. And if you want to be on point with your brand, because that's you, that's your identity, you got to take ownership of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I like to look at it, okay, so how can it's not replace me, but how can it help to, help me to be, like what you're saying, a little bit a bit faster and a bit more efficient, and those bottlenecks. Like, once again, coming back to this conversation, we're talking about being intimate in our strengths and weaknesses and understanding ourselves. And like, I've been an internet marketer since 2010, and I've done the Russell Brunson courses. I've done Darren Hardy, and I was a certified partner of Ryan Dice for digitalmarketer.com. So I've done all of those, invested quite heavily into myself. And when I first come onto AI, I thought, right, I know what I'm doing. I'm king shit. My ego's big. I know what I'm doing here, and I can go and operate it. And I was sorely disappointed. And my arrogance and my ego at that time, it set me up to like have a bad experience, because I got into AI and I thought, right, I'm just going to type a post together and we'll do it together. And the experience I got was, it was robotic, it was bland, it was dry. It just so much so I actually reacted. I got onto YouTube and I said, stay away from ChatGPT. It's going to destroy your brand. It's not going to serve you, yada, yada, yada. And then I saw people like Jeff J. Hunter and Jonathan Master, they were using it. It's like, oh, hang on, what am I missing? They're using it in a really skilled way that helped them amplify their voice. What am I missing?
Yeah.
And I had to realize it was the foundation.
And it's the way you're prompting it. Those ChatGPT prompts are so critical.
Yes.
I said priming it, but it's really what you're prompting it to do. Here's an example. And the coach that I'm working with, she's been really great at helping me, because she's a branding expert herself. And so, for example, I'm doing I have a television show coming out called Peak Performance Playbook. It's also will be released as a second podcast, and it's going to be released on E360 television and
cool.
Amazon Fire.
With Julianne.
Yeah, with Julianne. Yeah, with Julianne. And but it's also Tubi. They just picked up Tubi, and so it's got some really great platforms. And so I need a graphic. And I've had such a challenging time working with graphic artists, because I know what I want, but I can't explain it to them.
Yep.
And so she was like, attach the picture. I was like, I want this picture. I want it to reflect all types of sports, blah, 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 blah. And she helped me do the prompt, and it came back and it said, here's what you tell the graphic designer. Because I was like, I don't know what to tell the graphic designer. I copied it, went back onto Fiverr with the person I've been using. He came back, bam. Beautiful. And now we're fine tuning it. And I'm like, so maybe he probably has a chat. He probably has a program himself for graphic artists. I don't care. I don't know how to tell you to do this, and I'm not a graphic artist. Yeah, it's beautiful. And now we're just tweaking, right?
It's high performance partnership. I love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have no budget. I'm not at a point where I can spend $5,000 on a huge, amazing logo. I'm not there.
Yeah. No, I get it. I've bootstrapped everything off the back of a disability pension, so I understand the quirks, not the shortcuts, but the ways
you gotta be
bring
resourceful.
things what you got to do, right? Bootstrap it, I call it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, all right. Well, I'm sure I could talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles with you, and I absolutely love this conversation. We'll have to get you back for another episode. But let's wrap up. So if someone's listening today, they feel stuck, they feel overwhelmed, they feel unsure of their next steps in business or life, what are the 3 things they can do right now to shift their mindset and start creating real momentum and get traction?
Great question. So number one, there has to be some self-awareness. I call it getting into your zone of genius. And my formula for the zone of genius is 3 things. You have you have self-awareness plus self-love plus spirituality equals your zone of genius. And that's where your highest frequency. So it's becoming self-aware, focusing on self-love, and you have to have something other than yourself that you believe in. Call it your chair, God, Buddha, Allah, Jesus, the universe, your lucky star, your car,
needs to be bigger
your
than
cat,
you.
Your dog.
Yep.
It's just something that you're, right? Something that you're aspiring to trust.
I would say it's something that you need
over.
something you need to be grateful for, and that faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you can surrender, right? One of my other coaches and mentors, Craig Siegel, he always says, marry the process, divorce the outcome. And to me, that's what surrendering is. That's what surrender. So it's all about surrendering, marry the process, divorce the outcome, and surrender. But you've got to have the self-awareness, the self-love, and the spirituality in order to get to that place. And you can't shortcut here. It's trust me, I'm the type of person for 35 years I've been going over, under, around. You can't. You got to go through it, folks. It's the only way. Because I will be the first one to try a shortcut. I am Miss Efficiency, and if I can find a shortcut, I'm going to find a shortcut. But
I'm guilty of that.
when we're talking consciousness, there's no shortcuts. There's no shortcuts.
I'm just reflecting on the last 10 years, and you're so right. You're so right. It's I'm guilty of trying to look for the shortcuts and the silver bullets, and I'll freely admit that. But every time I've got to do that, I fall flat in my face, and I come back to, it's like, hang on, I've got to do the work. I've got to go deep. I've got to go deep. Got to do the internal stuff. And so
exactly.
Yeah, I get it. Thank you for sharing that. There's some really awesome stuff there. So, all right. So it was self-awareness. It was spirituality. What was the third one? Sorry, I missed one.
Self-love.
Self-love. Yeah, I love that. Self-awareness, which will lead to self-love, and you can look at yourself in your mirror, warts and all, and be comfortable with your identity of who, the higher power has created you to be. I love that. And that was definitely where my firm foundation started to build off. I learned to love myself, and I became aware of how I was wired. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Well, Sandee, this has been absolute gold. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you. But before we wrap up, where can our people connect with you? How can they learn more about your work? How can they get access to your amazing gift that you bring to the world?
Oh, thank you. You can go to sandeesgarlata.com, and on there I have a little ebook that you can get a free copy of that ebook, Peak Performance Secrets. I believe also on there my book, Happiness Solved, Climbing 100 Steps, which was released in February of 21. I believe you can get a free copy there. But you can always email me at sandeesgarlata.com, Instagram and Facebook. I am at Coach Sandee Sgarlata.
Thank you. Really appreciate you. And all right, legends. Well, that's been an amazing episode. If you've gotten value from this, hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And just come back full circle. If you are that lonely person who's going through some depression, reach out, speak to someone. Please don't bottle it up and keep it to yourself, because that internal voice, it'll keep telling you lies. So
reach out to me.
Yeah.
I'm happy to help.
Me
Absolutely.
Too. Yeah. And, for those of you who want to subscribe so you never miss another episode, we can find us on YouTube. It's the Laptop Lifestyle Dad Show. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcast. We're hosted on the LA Tribune Podcast Network too, and you'll see more amazing episodes. Sandee is actually on there as well, so you'll be able to go grab her podcast and listen to hers and share hers around the world. So if you love what we're doing here, and you're on Apple and you're listening to the replay, hey, drop us a comment. If you're tuning in, tag a mate who needs to hear this. And Sandee, before I go, I've got to hit you with a classic dad joke.
Oh, please.
It's part of the brand. It's the Laptop Lifestyle Dad Show after all. So here you go. All right, this is my favorite. I married my beautiful wife for her looks. Just not the ones that she gives me these days.
That's awesome.
Every time I share that joke with Sarah,
she's like, love it. I love it. That's beautiful. Love it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you. And for our listeners, stay caffeinated, stay legendary, and we'll see you on the next episode.